Today is one of my favorite days of the week where Paul from DeFinity joins us. Now, Paul has over 30 years experience trading on price analysis. His skills really help our audience get a feel for what he is seeing in the price, and we take your suggestions on what to cover, as well as the crypto projects that are on our mind. So welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. Now, if you like money in crypto and you're looking for a real investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. You can do that as easily as liking this video and subscribing with the all notifications bell enabled. Special note, we're not financial advisors. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul is an investor across many different things. Note, I do own or plan to own most of what I talk about on this channel, especially the stuff I pick. I don't talk about crypto projects that I don't believe in. Special thanks to our Patreon members. We appreciate your support. They get special access to our closed Discord. There is a Telegram group you can join for free below. Now make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show. Let's welcome our producer, D Money.
Yo, Jay, we got Paul with us too. How's it going today?
Good.
Thanks.
I know you look forward to the meetings with Paul as well.
100%. It's like, it's been a couple weeks ago, but, I'm thinking about like Zilliqa, and Paul might not even know this. We went back and looked at Zilliqa. Paul, you were like, oh, this chart is brilliant. This is like buy signals all the way. And then within a couple of weeks, or maybe it was 1 week, it had like 5x or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we went through
10 days, it had 5x.
Yeah, so we went back and kind of fluxed on that in one of the streams or something. But we're like, man, that's why you gotta watch this episode every week, because these are the types of picks that happen. And obviously this isn't financial advice, but it's great to see how you guys both analyze the charts.
With the markets, where they are too, I think we'll have more turnarounds like that, right? And they show signs, even if what's interesting is Paul doesn't follow the fundamentals, but he can see the fundamentals happening in the price. And so he can see in the price action, he's like, this is showing some signs that it wants to turn around and flip the other way. And that's exactly what you had said about Zilliqa. And sure enough, 10 days later, it 5x'd.
Yeah, what I think of it is that there's plenty of experts like you out there who are looking at the price and think this is a screaming buy. I don't have the financial background knowledge of the actual crypto projects to know what's going on, but I see when investor sentiment changes, and each week you might find somewhere it's 60-40, 70-30, but occasionally everything lines, you go, right, this is a really great opportunity, and you have to be there every week in order to find them. And that's a really important part of analysis and trading, that most of the time you're actually filtering out things and going, yeah, that's a good opportunity, that's all right, this might turn around, this is okay. And then suddenly you see something like, bam, this is a really special setup, and that's where you kind of try and back those ones. But yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, it's such a fascinating area. I mean, outside of what we talk about in your channel, I see, people wondering whether the whole space is worth being in or not. And it's really so interesting for me to talk to you and hear about people that you have on your channel who are such experts in the technology and have got such a vision for the future, that it really is like, I think there's a lot of people who still need to cotton on to this, that there's plenty of happening in the space. It's really exciting.
It's been interesting just the past 4 years. And whenever you get started, you think you're coming late. When I got started in 2017, I felt like I was late to the party. If you started this last couple of months, you probably feel like you're late to the party. You're not still. It is amazing to see the transformation. 4 years ago, one of the biggest advocates with the biggest name for crypto was John McAfee. Now there's Elon Musk. There's like Mr. Wonderful. There's all kinds of much bigger names talking about crypto and advocating for it and helping people understand what this technology will do that will change the future. So specifically, I'm here because I like where the technology is going, but as an investor, the biggest potential gains are here. There's high volatility, so bad trades can make you losses as well. I like the volatility because I like to buy. I say buy when it's boring or buy when prices are down. And then I sell when prices are up. And I know that seems simple. It does sound simple. it's not as simple because we're human beings and we're emotional, and we tend to want to buy when things are up and sell when they're low. The last few days, we've had a big correction down. And so probably the audience has felt some pressure to sell, right? Oh my gosh, it's just going to keep going down. We're going to look at some prices today. I'm really excited to have Paul on as we take a look at some things. One of our viewers suggested the S&P 500. Do you mind if we look at that as we look at some of the bigger things like the dollar and where Bitcoin is and what your thoughts are on the reading kind of what's happening on the price?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If I could actually just start with, I will look at the S&P and the dollar and some yield stuff as well, because you're absolutely right. That stuff's really important. Polkadot, I just wanted to show you this chart very quickly, just in case we didn't get to it and I forgot about it later, because I get excited about the audience picks and I might forget to come back to it. What we saw in the first stage when if you remember, when Bitcoin and Ethereum was collapsing and then starting to stabilize, the altcoins started to rally, and then we saw a rally in the majors, which is really kind of backwards because it doesn't usually happen like that. And what we've seen in Polkadot is this rally and then this correction. Now, this is looking really interesting because what I like is symmetry. So if you look at this on the left, this could be a left shoulder, this could be a head, this could be forming what is a really nice head and shoulders reversal. And I think this will tell us whether the market is going to rally or not over the coming weeks, and therefore perhaps even months. So it needs to hold in around these current levels, just below 16.5. That would mean that if it can start to rally here, it would form a head and shoulders reversal. It's a very clear pattern. Now, it's not complete. This is still in the early stages of it, or the final stages of a completion. To complete it, it needs to trade all the way up to 23 sort of 85 to complete the head and shoulders. But if it does that, then it's going to go much higher, and I think everything else will follow. So the converse of that is, and we always have to look for a parachute for the exit. If it breaks this low here at just below 16 at 15.95, then the chances of a greater correction and a bigger correction and everything else could be in the cards. So I like to look at the slightly off the beaten track areas, because you might get a steer for the bigger picture in the less traded compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum markets. But let's look at the S&P 500. And the thing with the S&P 500 is that we saw a big correction here, and the market kind of panicked and got geared up for a bigger move down because of interest rates going up, yields are going up, and they're going up fast, and the dollar is strengthening as well. Now, this spike down here was a really strong day. It was a really strong downward spike, like a spike in the ground. For me, I'm not going to get panicky until, for a really big correction, unless that breaks. And if I could just show you a chart of the NASDAQ as well. The NASDAQ correction came into a perfect 38.2 Fibonacci correction before it rallied. And it's had a really nice impulsive, what we call an impulsive rally, and it's corrected. So we're currently in a correction, which is very, very similar to the Polkadot chart, where it's at this crossroads. If it starts to go up, I think we're going to see a really big move to the upside, and it'll take the highs out before the end of the year. But if it keeps going down, I would start to get worried in this zone. If it gets close to this support, if I go back to the S&P just to reference that, because that's what you asked for, I don't want to see it trading around 42,000. That would be a problem. And anywhere near this prior 41.14. If it breaks that, then I think we're going to be in for a big correction, a much bigger correction. So whilst we're here, if you look at the chart, it looks kind of messy, doesn't it? It means the market's really sideways. And it's sideways because the market doesn't know what to do with the inflationary environment that we're in. If the Federal Reserve are behind the curve, then inflation is going to continue to take off. That's good for stocks. It will be good for a point until it goes too far, and then they'll have to raise them really hard, and then stocks will collapse. But I don't think we're at that stage yet. So even though they're talking about interest rate rises, there is still potential that they're behind the curve. And behind the curve, we mean they're not raising them fast enough. Interest rates might go up by 0.5% or 1%, but inflation could be sort of 8, 9, 10%. So they're still way behind, and that's good for stocks usually. So that's what the market is trying to fathom out, is whether this is going to be good or bad for stocks. There are interest rate rises coming in, but perhaps not enough. In terms of yields, now, again, Crypto Rain knows all about the yield market when it comes to mortgages, and look at how quickly this has gone up. We took out this 1.49%, 1.94%, nearly 2% a while ago, and then we just got this straight line move through 2.5% in the 10-year money, and the big target beyond that is 3.2. So yields are constantly going up. So that means that the market is looking for further inflationary pressure. And that, I have to say, is a bit of a drag on the crypto space, because it is a competition to those other assets. Any time that interest rates do go up, it does make it harder to raise money, and all those factors. But I still think I don't think we're in the phase where it's enough to necessarily cause a major problem. It's just that I'd like to see this reversal consolidate, so that the crypto space can move up, because it should move up, and I think it will move up on the basis of inflation. And I hear lots of arguments whether inflation is good or bad for cryptocurrencies. I can't see how it can be a bad thing if there's only 21 million Bitcoin and they're printing money all the time, and inflation is running out of control. That pushes up the price of everything else, because it's got to fall in relative terms. So I think inflation is one of the reasons why you'd want to be involved in the crypto asset market, especially with energy prices going up so fast. How do you hedge yourself? So those are the questions that investors are asking themselves. So the dollar itself, again, has been very strong. I've had a target here at 100 that it's just hit. I was bullish around sort of July, August last year, looking for this trend to continue. And we look for some signs that it might be turning around. And I think on the show, we were looking at this 97.70 area as support. And if it broke, we'd said, the dollar could correct a bit more. But that held, and we've had another leg up. So the dollar still seems to be in the ascendancy. And again, the relationship between that and Bitcoin is not a one-to-one relationship. So the dollar can go up and Bitcoin can go up. But again, I think if this could just correct for a little bit, it would take some of the pressure off slightly. So I think it would just help the situation a bit, to put it in those terms.
Mm-hmm.
So with regard to Bitcoin and Ethereum itself, if we look at Ethereum first, we saw this correction. We had this consolidation, and we were looking for the market to go up, and it hit this 35.73 area, which is fantastic resistance and support. See how these things, they act as support, and then resistance. So we say support and resistance reverses its roles. There's also the 200-day moving average that it hit. And so there was a bit of resistance up here. I thought we'd have a little correction and then a move back up. This is a slightly larger correction than I would have liked. But what I'm really pleased to see is that it's held on this 29.51 level, which was, again, an important support back here. So if this can start to rally now and take out this 33.23, then I think we'll see a move up to this 40.30 area. So it's still in this consolidation. We haven't got this big, impulsive, really strong trend, which I'll be all over once it starts. We're still sort of gearing up for takeoff, and we have to be wary. You've got to be slightly, not concerned, but you've got to be cautious is the right word, because we are at a crossroads here, and you can imagine if the chart starts to come down here, we're going to be concerned that it's going to break this support line. And if it does that, there won't be much holding it to below sort of 1800. So I don't want to go into that. I can go into it, but I don't believe that we're going to see that sort of correction at the moment. So my sort of main strategy is that we're in a consolidation. This is a correction. This overall trend is moving up. So I'm going to go with that until proven wrong. And I'm quite happy with the sideways consolidation. That's absolutely fine as long as it doesn't start to trend down. Same with Bitcoin. It's traded back through this 42,000 level, I should say. That seems to be quite pivotal. The big resistance it took out was 45 and then hit bang on the 200-day moving average. I mean, it was literally to the pip, and it's corrected down. It's come back into its prior support zone, which is fine, but it needs to turn around here. So I don't want to see it go much lower, because if it does, this yellow support line here will come under threat, and I don't want to see that go. If that goes, then, well, depending on which way you want to look at it, you'll either get a really good opportunity in the next sort of 2 months to buy it very cheaply, or, you know, there'll be a lot of people bailing out and upset that it's gone down. So if you're a long-term bull as I am, I would see it as a long-term buying opportunity, but you'd have to sort of ride out quite a nasty correction if that breaks. But it hasn't yet, and I'm going to go with the bullish strategy for now, the cautiously bullish strategy, because I think that's warranted based upon the price action at the moment.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of thumbnails on YouTube lately about Bitcoin going to 20,000, Bitcoin going to 28,000. Really, the price on that chart, the price to watch is right there. And when we see it hit that lower trend line, if we can pull that back up, we see it hit that lower trend line. If it breaks down below that, and it'll often come, sometimes break through and then go straight down, but I don't expect that will happen. It is a possibility, and that yellow line is the line to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So sentiment, you make a very good point there. Sentiment is important. If the markets are generally screaming bearish, then any sideways consolidation is bullish, if that makes sense. So in other words, if they can't push the market down and they're all really bearish, it means that they're short, or they're not long, and they've got options that will make money on the way down, and therefore the market will always move in the opposite direction, usually. So that's why you find that long-term investors and traders tend to be a bit more contrary. They don't want to go with the crowd, because usually the crowd are kind of screaming at the wrong time. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible for it to go down, because of course it's absolutely possible. And we're always, you know, open. Every good trader is open to the idea that the market could go against what they think will happen. You know, we can all be wrong, and we just accept that. So, as you keep saying on the show, everything's a probability, and we're just trying to wait until the probability is like massively in our favor. And I tend to find that these are the most sort of difficult periods, the consolidation periods, the trending periods, which will come. You know, the markets become much clearer, and it sometimes takes a few months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes it's, you know, it can take a year for the sector to consolidate, and then we just get these massive trends. So you've got to be in it, you've got to stay in it
so quickly. They're like, people kind of sit on the sidelines, they sell, and they're like, oh, I'll just buy lower right as it's taking off. And they usually miss a big chunk of those gains because it just happens very fast. And so looking at history, right, like most of the growth has happened within 8% of the time, meaning that 8% is where all the massive runs have happened.
Absolutely.
And so most of the sideways trading and everything, and then all of a sudden it just takes off. And if you're not like on the high, on your button, like that day, sometimes that hour, you miss it. And there's lots of false signals. So that's why your 30 years experience is so helpful, just to give this kind of look at it. I'm a fundamental analysis type of person, so your price analysis complements so well, just to give our audience a more rounded view. Now, it's been very boring in crypto, and I've drawn out many times the lengthening cycle thing for my audience, about this lengthening cycle pattern, that there was a massive run at the end of 2013, a massive run at the end of 2017. What drives that, the underlying value behind that, is that Bitcoin's increase of how much Bitcoin is released every 10 minutes through mining decreases by half every 4 years. And so the lengthening cycle has to do with that. And when we drew out what this lengthening cycle might look like for the peak of the bull market for Bitcoin, it suggested maybe May or June of this year, which we're getting pretty close. We're a month away from May. We're a month away from the later part of May, which is actually what it suggested. I'm not seeing enough to think that May is going to be the peak of Bitcoin. Maybe June or July, but it would start to have to move by now.
Yeah, that would be really interesting timing. So if that is a base we're seeing in Polkadot, if we are seeing a sort of gear up, this is just a correction to pull, everybody out and put some doubt in there so that they kind of sit on the sidelines and say, okay, I'll just wait, and it starts to take off. That would be interesting. And I think if it does trade up quickly and take out that 200-day moving average, it would perhaps surprise people. And I like to look for the surprise. But, I think here we've got to be quite balanced. But I do think there's a big rally coming. It's just a question of when. It's just the timing, as you say.
Exactly. There's lots of signals, and there's lots of fundamental signals and some technical signals that there is a big rally coming. And it's hard being patient. A lot of the audience, this is the hard part to be in crypto. And everyone likes to look back and say, oh, I wish I could buy in 2019 when prices were so low. And it's like, well, you were alive in 2019. Why didn't it happen? Now, for a lot of the audience, it's because they didn't know about crypto yet. But some did. And the reason it's hard is because it's very boring to be paying attention to crypto when you're trading sideways and you have these big downtrends. And it's painful, and it's emotionally painful. And so, but that's when the best prices are, and then it runs up. And that tends to be when everyone then throws their money in. As a contrarian investor, I like to buy when it's boring and then wait till everyone gets all crazy about it and everyone's like mortgaging houses to buy more crypto, and then I sell into that. Why don't we jump into some viewer picks, some additional ones? I'm excited to look at some of these.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've got here is so I haven't looked at them. I like to have a fresh view on the chart, so I give you my sort of instant view. So I have actually put the first one up, which I think is MOVR, which I believe is Moonriver, unless I've got that wrong. Yeah, so that's Moonriver, right? So I'm just going to move my cursor out of the way, so just to make sure we've got up-to-date prices. And so this is okay. So this is an interesting chart because this is the impulsive move. So this is the first move out of the bear trend. So if we draw a trend line here and say, well, what has been going on? Like, if you were invested in this, what have you had to deal with over the past few months? And that is basically a downward trend. So that trend ended here. It ended with the crossover of this trend line. And this very impulsive move, which came from down at 44 all the way up to sort of 85, 86. Now, we would expect and allow for a correction in that trend before the market goes back up again. So the first phase is the first early phase of the crypto rain phase is where you're buying when it's boring. Then it's people like me that jump on the trend and say, oh, actually, look, this looks like it's moving. Then the people, some short-term traders would just bail out. They say, well, I've had enough of this. I'm getting out. And that's what will push the market back down again because they've been taking pain from the top. But what we need to see is stabilization here and then another move back up towards this high. That's what creates these inversion patterns, these head and shoulders, double bottom patterns that I talk about. There is some psychology behind why they're created like that. So as long as it can hold, I like trend lines when they break because you can use them as prior support. So it was resistance, resistance. Now this could act as support. So as long as it holds around this level, it's held here before and here. I think that this is still on the bull side. It's tentative because it's the first part of this phase. But I think this should hold around here and start to move back up again. If it does that, it would look really good. It would look like it's created a W, which is a double bottom. If it breaks this 86 area, then we can start talking about a move up to sort of 170, that sort of price action. The big support, you can see it. It's very obvious. It's all the way down here at 44. We don't want it slinking all the way back down there again because it would mean that there's some other problem. We want investors to jump back in here and tell us that this is just a correction. It's not a bigger opportunity to bail out. So it needs to hold around current levels. I don't want to see it go much lower. And that would be a good setup for a move higher. And as I say, the big signal has been the break of this trend line. So this is where the dynamics have changed. So this could be looking good. It's still got to do a bit more work, but it's looking good.
Yeah, I agreed. Like I'm just sitting and waiting on that one. I like Moonriver. I did buy a little bit a few months back, and it's been savage since then. The vesting schedule, I didn't know that much about their vesting. I didn't realize they had a bunch of pre-sale investors and that they would be distributing tokens. I wish I'd looked into that a little bit deeper. I think its price has been getting savage just because those token unlocks happen, and those tokens have been vesting and released, and then investors are selling them, bringing the price down to even more attractive prices. I like Moonriver for the long term. So it's one of those projects that I think has good potential for at least coming 4 years. So yeah, I'm going to kind of watch what happens here. For me, it's a wait. I'll watch and wait and watch what happens, see if I like it, and then maybe pick up some more.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a good strategy. I mean, if I was forced to take a position, and that word is a very strong word, I would be tempted to buy, but I prefer to wait because I want it to hold this support where it is now. It's literally on it, so I'd like it to start moving up from here just to confirm that as support. So yeah, that's a good one. Next one is Neo. So I'm assuming it's this one. So let's have.
Yeah, I haven't heard Neo in a while. This was such a lot of, it was supposed to be the big blockchain. It was in the top 6 at some points in the history, and it's not performed all that well, not lived up to expectations. It was one of the first cryptos that you could hold and get a passive income. Because just by holding Neo in your wallet, you get gas that you can claim.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing here, I mean, the short term is obviously not great, but the long term, it is interesting because you've got this impulsive move here that's obviously what you were talking about when it was a really exciting new technology. We've had this big correction, and it went back up to attempt to break into a new high, which, let's see, that happened last year, but not around the same time as when everything else was going up. So it seems to be slightly decoupled from the broader market. But I like this sort of rounding set of lows here. See the way it's gone, that low, this low. If this low holds in, then a correction back up to here would be really good. Like the third time. We look for threes in technical analysis. So one attempt didn't work. Second attempt doesn't work. If it goes for a third attempt, it will break. So right here, we can't say buy it because it's still in this correction. But if it takes out $30, I would wager that this would start to edge all the way back up to 134 and take that high out. So from a long-term play, I'd be watching this. I think it looks interesting just because the big picture warrants another go at this high. But right here, right now, it's sitting on really good support from where if you look here, this is what we call pivotal. So this is pivotal support at 20 because it came down, pivoted below, pivoted back up. It could potentially pivot back below it again. But in order to break that cycle, it needs to go straight up now. And if it does go straight up now, it would have broken that sort of wave cycle that would suggest that it's going to be pulled into this new high. So I think I'm going to watch this because it could give us a lead into maybe what the others are doing. It's a really interesting chart, but I can't say buy it yet, but it's a definite watch.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is CRO. So I'm guessing there'll be a few. So we probably need
this is Cronos. This is Crypto.com's token. And they had a massive run just back around the time the metaverse run happened. So late October, it absolutely went crazy through peaking out like the 23rd of November. And then it has been retracing and consolidating.
Yeah, this is great. Now, I wish I'd seen this before because this is really, really good. So this breakout here is the sort of thing I go for. So a solid sort of upward move. Let me just show you. I like the way it's done this. It's just gone straight up and straight through a prior high. So if it takes out a prior high with a move like this, it usually indicates it's going to extend further. So what I'm saying in that is that technically we get some really good signals out of it. Volume was pretty high up there, so I think that's suggesting that that was when everyone was bailing out. But what about now? This is triangular. This is a really nice triangular constriction. Now, I would prefer this. You see this high here? If this was a bit lower, then it would be a bit more compressed. Triangles are usually consolidation phases before the market continues up. And its range is rather large. So it's gone from like 0.9 all the way down to 0.34. Can you class that as a correction? Probably. I mean, you can class it as a correction, but could you class it as a sideways sort of compression? Not really. That's a little bit too big for me. I think it's not like a train that's at a station waiting for its next move. It's more like I think people were bailing out. So, but overall, this is still a nice constriction. So something that's going sideways in a consolidation is usually a sign that it's going to gear up and go back up. So I do think that this is bullish, and it's more bullish than a lot of other charts I've seen. So I'd be erring on the side of the upside here. Now, what I'd like to see happen to confirm that, so if this is going to be a bullish constriction, we need this upward resistance line to break. And so I don't like to say buy it if it breaks up and sell it if it breaks down. I like to give you a sort of directional view. But ordinarily, it would have been a straightforward, look, this is going to go up because it's a triangle. But because it's come off this high like this, I've got to be a bit wary that it could be something else. So this is quite unusual for a triangular constriction. So I'm going to say if it breaks this upper line, it will look really good. And I like the way it's compressing into a corner. So it has to break out. So it's going to break out very soon. And I'm just going to go with the upside. Now, I could be wrong, of course. Maybe it'll turn into a top. If it's a topping formation, it'll break 0.32. But that constriction's looking good.
So is your thought, so that big peak, and I think one of the reasons that drove this breakout was that there were some changes to the tokenomics and the reward system, and that's what drove it, this massive break upwards, and then it peaked and came sideways. So normally that would look somewhat like a triangular constriction, but what you're saying is that area that goes even higher is a concern that maybe, there's something else going on here. Yeah.
So normally, so normally what you do is you'd see something like a move down like this. Hang on, let's see if it'll let me draw it. No, it won't. Let me just show you what I'd like to have seen. So if it'd gone down like that, then up like this, then down like this, and then again up. This would be the sort of constriction that I'd like to have seen, like much higher up, nearer the top, and then a breakout would confirm the trend. But what's happened is it's kind of slunk downwards, so it's off its high. So normally a triangular constriction sits near the high of the peak, and it's sort of gearing up for a breakout. So it's because this breakout would be quite far off the peak. That I'm slightly more cautious. If that was right up here, then it would be a really strong buy because it would be just consolidating just below the high. And when you get that breakout, not only do you sort of confirm that the range is now no longer, it's also moving into a new high as well, which is usually a sign that it's going to accelerate. So that's why there's just a little bit of caution there because it's off the high.
Makes sense. Let's take a look at one of the viewers. Now, if you're looking to make some suggestions for us to review next week, put them in the comments section on this, not in the chat section, but in the actual comments. And give us up to 2. Preferably tell us what you like about them and what you want us to look at with them. Just putting the ticker symbols, it's okay, but tell us what you like about them and what you want to see about them. It really helps us give more information so we can answer your questions better. Does that make sense? But only give us 2. We're not going to look at 15 by one viewer, and we'll just look at 2.
Okay, great. Yeah, please do that. That'd be fantastic. So CVC, there's obviously is it CVC coin or CV coin?
Civic
Oh, is
is,
it
I
Civic?
think, the one they're asking us to look at.
Is it the first one?
Probably. It's got.
Is that Civic?
Let's see. I'm not seeing your chart. Yes, that should be it.
Okay. Well, again, this. I'll just double check we're on the right. Yeah, because that's on 3 days. So I was looking at a slightly longer term because of the previous chart. So let me just check that. Yeah, 12th. Okay, good. I just want to make sure we got up-to-date price action. So this is another similar situation. Very nice. Well, this downward trend was reversed by a head and shoulders reversal. So if we get the context of the story of what's happened, this was the base that kicked everything off. So we've had a really strong run here, a pullback, and now we're in this consolidation. And this consolidation is, again, it's triangular. So triangular constrictions are what I like. So if I'm going to say that spike there it looks a little off. Maybe it's bad data. I'm not sure, but it looks slightly out of place. So I don't like to ignore price action, but occasionally on charting systems and prices, you get the odd price that isn't right. So I'm going to just say that I think that's an unusual spike of some kind. But everything else seems to fit within this triangular constriction. And the longer it stays in this triangular constriction, the more bullish the chart will look for me. So in order to complete it, it needs to break this upper line. So at the moment, it's sitting at 0.58. And as time goes on, that will just dip down to about 0.54. So usually triangles break out about 2/3 along. If they go right to the apex, that's usually a bad sign and suggests it will go back down. So we would expect it to break out. Well, on this, it's by September, but I'd hope it'd be before then. And that, that's basically your signal. So if it breaks this upper line, then I think we're going to go for the upside and a sharper move up to $1.6. Where am I wrong? If we break this support line, then it's no longer a triangle. We're going to see a deeper correction. We'll just have to reconsider. But that's a really nice chart. So thank you for suggesting it.
Yeah, some of these viewer picks are great. They're ones that I'm not otherwise looking at. So thank you for that.
Do we know much about this one, or was there no details in the?
I don't know all that much about it. Civic, it talks about an integrated permissioning tool that helps businesses control access to their dApps for crypto native communities, NFT platforms, and marketplaces and DAOs. So they want to make it cross-chain compatible, like Polkadot, ETH, Solana. So yeah, we'll see if they actually start getting traction with other businesses and have a lot of business-to-business sales. I imagine this would take off. It's kind of got an interesting chart versus the rest of the market, and I think a lot of it is because they're trying to offer a service. Mostly looks like business to business. It depends on how that goes.
Yeah. So some of these will be literally lottery tickets as to whether they work or not, and whether the technology gets superseded by somebody else or bought out or whatever. So that's the exciting thing, and it's also the downside with being early. You can pick up on something very early and it'd be a great technology or not. So but yeah, so at the moment the market is saying it's broadly bullish, but we're having a little sort of think in this range as to which way it wants to go. So that's why we get these consolidations, but usually that price action is more biased to the upside. So
let's take a look at Telos. This
Telos.
TLOS is the ticker symbol.
Yeah.
Telos. TLOS. You got those.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's the old dyslexia kicking in. Okay, that's now. Have we? No, I don't think we've seen this chart before. As you can see, this is really unusual. So just trying to make sense of what's going on here. This is either a really early trade or there's some really bad price action in here. This doesn't make any sense at all. Why is it trading like that? Yeah, I've not seen a chart like this before. This is very, very weird.
That's not matching exactly what I'm seeing on CoinGecko.
Yeah, it may have smoothed it out. Let's have a look if there's another. Let's try another one here.
That's what I'm looking at.
Oh, yeah.
So this is on linear, not logarithmic. Logarithmic will look like this, but
yeah, it's okay. I've just changed it to a different exchange, so this looks much more.
Yes,
this much more like it. That was a bit strange. So yeah, Telos is it's in a broadly upward trend, but it looks like you've got to be quite patient because it has not done a whole lot since trying to break through its high. What was that in February? But it stayed relatively elevated. So this is, what would I do here? It's a tricky one, actually. It's a tricky one. I think I'd be tempted to pick it up on, see what we've got here is a double bottom. So there's a move down this W and it's sitting on this W. So right where it is now is crucial support. So if it holds that, great. I think we can have a move back up. If it breaks this 0.95, then we'll go for a new high. It is a bit balanced though. I'm sorry. I can't give you like a definitive like 80-20 view. It's have to be more 60-40. If it breaks this, then there is good support below. So we got good support at 0.55, and then very key support at 0.44. So if you're a long-term investor, I would say over 0.44, I would be sort of happy to hold it. If it breaks 0.44, then all of this would become a double top. That would not be good, and we'd be looking at a much bigger correction. So short-term traders, you might have a go at it here. And as I say, if it breaks this 0.95, the chart would look really good. But it's been correcting for the past sort of month or so. But broadly speaking, it's the trend is up. So that's why I'm trying to bias the upside again. Do you know much about the technology?
Not that much. Telos is an EVM. Here, let me read from their website. Home to the fastest EVM Ethereum virtual machine, essentially a blockchain reimagining what's possible. Telos is faster, cheaper, and greener, and honest. Beyond function, we are leading the way for a better Web3 trade and swap. Telos, what it says. So, yeah, I mean, the niche, if they nail it and they get some market share, there's a lot competing with that, like Avalanche and other third-generation blockchains competing in that space. It doesn't mean there isn't room for more in the short term. In the long term, it'll consolidate. There's only going to be 3 or 4 blockchains probably that survive long term. So, but I'm a swing trader. So now, if I knew more about this fundamentally, I might be interested. I like where the chart is. So this bigger correction, like you said, probably looking a little bit like a W here. Well, a higher low, right? So it came down here, broke up, retraced, higher low. I do think, if I'm right, and the rains are coming in, meaning there's massive influx into the market of fresh new money, just about everything will run. So do I like this versus a lot of my other picks? Not enough. So for me, it's a wait. Wait and learn more. Their market cap's 195,000 or 195 million. They have in their circulating supply a good chunk of their total supply in circulation. So I like that. Trading volume, there's some volume there. The markets that they're on KuCoin. That's great. Bitfinex, Gate.io. Basically, KuCoin is their biggest one that they're on. Yeah, nice. Decent. I will consider it, but I'm not buying any today.
Yeah. I think on a relative basis, I totally agree. It's not enough to say dismiss it altogether, but it's again, there are other things that potentially look better. But I think the next one is Flux. Okay, well, unfortunately, this is looking more like a potential massive head and shoulders reversal pattern. So if we look at it as this is the left shoulder, this is the head, this is the right shoulder. Then you've got a neckline down here, which I haven't got a crosshairs to show you. Why has it just done that? So that this low level here, if it takes that out, then I would be concerned. I think that's just around maybe $1.20, just guessing on the scale. So what we've got is left shoulder, head, potential right shoulder. So I would be cautious here at the moment, because that's looking more like a reversal pattern than a continuation pattern. It needs to negate that, which I think it would have to take out 180. So 180 would negate a head and shoulders reversal pattern. And I know that's a massive move from here, but it has had some massive moves. So it's moved over $3 from like whatever that is, around 110 or 120. So from 120 to $3 has been the range, which is not a smooth trend. And when I'm looking for an investment or trade, we want to be sort of getting into some smoother price action to show that the investors are either holding it or buying into retracements. So I'm not saying it can't go up, because that's obviously possible. It's just that this needs to be resolved. And at the moment, it's in what could be a right shoulder of a massive head and shoulders reversal. As I say, it negates around 180, 175, 80 is that top. And you see it's hit that twice. So you'd know if it's going to start to turn and become bullish. But right here, it'd have to be a wait, because it's too uncertain. But that's a very interesting long-term chart. So, this I think it will, even if it does correct, I think it should move with everything else, because it's, this is still part of a bullish trend. It's just that it might need to correct before it continues.
Yeah, I like fundamentally the space that Flux is in. I don't like the risk to reward ratio on where its token is at. If it breaks down from there, it's got a long ways without a lot of resistance and to come down. So the risk is high. The reward that it goes the other way is okay. Let me read to you from the website. Decentralized Web 3.0, the next generation computational network. Flux is a new generation of scalable, decentralized cloud infrastructure. Simply develop, manage, and spawn your applications on multiple servers at once, ready for Web3, dApps, and more. So essentially, there's a lot competing in this space, but if you look at it, they have this many terabytes probably dedicated to their network, and this many terabytes RAM, this much of solid state drives. So this is like a decentralized Amazon Web Service. At least that's what my read is on Flux. I like that area and like that space. I feel like Amazon Web Services has not a monopoly, but they have a huge market share in that market. And so I don't ever like it when one player has too much power, because even if that one player is completely noble, they don't always stay noble. CEOs change, boards change, incentives change. And so I just like what keeps them noble is having to compete, because they're not crushing everyone. So I'd love to see some competitors come in and have Amazon Web Services maybe only have like 5% of the market share, because there's so much competition in there. Right now, I don't know what their market share is, but it's gigantic.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm right on board with more competition is good for everybody.
It helps keep everyone honest. And
yeah, absolutely.
I like the incentives aligned. Well, that's all the viewer picks. If you haven't already, suggest some that you want us to look at next week. We air these episodes on Thursday. We do record them on Wednesdays. So give us some picks. And if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Join the Rainmaker family. The rains are coming. It's going to be pretty amazing coming in the next number of months is my feeling. And remember, in crypto, no rain, no gain.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. But buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I missed, cause I always made it time in mind. I sit the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I'll sell when it's high, I'll buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but when knowledge gains show. Sticking out this road can soon become a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crappy. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.